Back. All right, we're back. So in the last video, I told you I was going to come here and teach you a technique to help you deal with the feelings that you are feeling at the moment. And the question was, what do I do when I mess up? And then my answer was, when you messed up, how are you feeling? Or what were you feeling? And my guess is that if this is the day after you messing up, the feeling you had prior to messing up is very similar to how you feel now. You're probably feeling regretful, mad at yourself, angry, sad that you messed up, and wondering why you keep doing this over and over again. And sometimes the why is what drives you crazy, and I'm here to tell you the why doesn't matter. But I want you to ask yourself the question, how am I feeling in this moment? Now, if you happen to hear this video before the messing up actually happens, that's a good thing. But every time you have feelings of something coming up, cravings, the need to step outside the protocol, the aftermath of cheating, and you want to know what do you do when you mess up, this is what you do. The first thing you need to do is check in yourself and ask yourself, what are you feeling or how are you feeling? And I'm going to give you 5 core feelings I said in the previous video: happy, sad, mad, glad, or afraid. Now, your instincts are going to want you to give some other adjective to those 5 things. But to be honest with you, believe me that whatever you're feeling is going to be one of those 5 things. You may say annoyed, angry. You may say anxious, fear. You may say just blah, right? Glad, per se. Glad nothing bad's happening, glad nothing's good happening, just neutral, right? Usually the feelings of those 5 that we've been taught are not acceptable is usually anger, sadness, right? Happy, sad, mad, glad, and fear, right? If you grew up in the era that I grew up in, our parents pretty much said, you know, go to your room, and when you're ready to come out of the room with your smile on your face, I'm ready to see you. So you've been isolated. You've been taught to isolate when you feel feelings of sadness, anger, or fear. You don't like those feelings. You've been compressing them and pressing them down forever. So rather than feel those feelings, you'll go to food or alcohol or drugs or sex, whatever your vice is. In this conversation, let's assume that your vice is you going to food, not wanting to feel. So I said in the previous video that I believe the weight that you're carrying on you is been created because of the feelings that you refuse to feel. So I'm going to ask you to feel those feelings. I'm going to ask you to do it now. I'm going to walk you through an exercise that Jay and I teach our clients to implement when they can start to recognize those feelings coming up. So the best thing you can do first is ask yourself how you're feeling: happy, sad, mad, glad, and afraid. Whichever answer comes to you, acknowledge it. Let's assume that it's sadness. You're great, I'm sad. Then I want you to close your eyes, and I want you to locate where that feeling seems to be manifesting itself in your body. Just close your eyes right now. Listen to my voice and close your eyes and lock onto that sadness and find out where it's located. Chest, stomach, throat, anywhere. It could be anywhere. And if you can't, no big deal. But if you can, locate it. Then I want you to give that emotion or feeling, say it's sadness, a size. Now I like to use spheres, different sizes of spheres, because it's easy for me to visualize. And even though necessarily I would go from basketball to volleyball to softball to baseball to golf ball to marble to grain of sand. That's the size of it. Now, obviously, a basketball for me may fit in the size of my chest or my gut, but for me, those are the sizes that I use to identify the depth of that sadness or the depth of that feeling. The more intense it is, the larger it would be in my description here. And I would go the size of a basketball. If it's not so huge, then you get next size down, a volleyball, softball, whatever. So I want you to now, since you've located the size, located the mass or wherever the sadness is, I want you to locate the size. I want you now to give it a size. And once you've done that, now you know you have the location, say it was your chest, you have the size, it's the size of a volleyball. Now I want you to give it a color, and whatever color comes to your mind. And sometimes they may be black and blank, but the point is just whatever comes to your mind, I want you to give it a color. And it's just for you to be able to visualize it more intensely. So go ahead and do that now. So now once you've done that, for right now, I close my eyes and I see the color pink. So I'm going to use that as the example. So I have now this pink ball of sadness sitting in the middle of my chest, the size of a volleyball. And as I take a deep breath in to the count of 4, some of you may not be able to get to 4 because you're used to breathing very shallow, and I know this because I'm one of those people. I want you to get to as close to 4 as you can. If it's 3, that's fine. And I want you to let it out through your mouth for the same count of 4. And I want you to repeat this behavior. In through your nose, out through your mouth. And when I do this, for me personally, I close my eyes and I also put my hands around the size of the sphere that I feel that's in my chest where I said that sadness is. And the reason why I do that, because every time I breathe in and I breathe out, I slowly just start to compress down the size of that sphere. With each breath in, and each exhale out, I'm letting go of that energy and I'm closely making it smaller and smaller and smaller. This exercise could take 1 minute, 2 minutes, 3 minutes, 5 minutes. All depends on the size of your energy that you're feeling at the moment. How good you are at visualizing it and actually compressing the size down. And the goal is for you to compress the energy, slowly make it smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller till it finally dissipates into the ether, okay? So as you're breathing through your nose and out through your mouth, I want you to visualize that pink ball that I identified for myself. And as I do that, I literally bring my hands with each breath closer and closer and closer together. And exhale, I bring it closer and closer. So now my volleyball has gone past the size of a softball, now down to the size of a baseball. With each breath, I bring it down slower and smaller. So now it's the size of a golf ball, down to the size of a marble, down to the size of a grain of sand, and I dissipate and let it out. That process could take a few minutes, a few seconds, several minutes, all depends on how you're breathing, how big your initial feeling was or of the energy was. But as you process that and you give it up to God or give it up to your higher power, whichever your belief systems are, I want you to release that energy into the universe. I want you to take the energy you would normally take and stuff into your fat cells and kind of push down because you don't want to feel them. I want you to lift them up, breathe in and breathe out and let them out, let the energy out and give it to God or your higher power or whatever, the universe, however you want to describe that. Every time you're able to do that, you're actually taking that moment, taking that sadness, the anxiety, the fear, whatever it is you're feeling, that would normally drive you to go and want to stuff that with food, you're now giving that energy up to God. And when you do that, sometimes if you're inside or outside, you may open up and you may see that the color that you actually were releasing to the universe is actually in front of you. Now, me looking in the camera here, talking to the video, I can see in my reflection that I have these beautiful purple pink flowers that are right there that I didn't think about when I said I saw the color pink in my mind. So as I let that energy out, so it's kind of ironic how that happens, but as I let that energy out, to me, is giving that energy to God and being able to create something beautiful from something that was actually very sad. But if you're able to walk yourself through this exercise each and every time it comes up, and you're able to identify what you're feeling, identify the energy, identifying the energy is actually powerful. A lot of times we are in this unconscious state of anxiety, fear, and anger that we don't even realize what's going on. And we've been training our body, the addiction our body has to feeling that way, we've been training it to react and go and stuff that energy. When you first ask the brain, what are you feeling? As soon as you ask the brain a question, it has to stop the story. The story is what's reeling. The story is what's causing the emotion to talk you into that experience of wanting to go and eat something or wanting to break the rules or wanting to step outside the protocol. So when you ask the question, what are you feeling? your brain has to stop and answer the question. If you just sit quietly, you'll ask you. If you ask it only to identify one of these 5 things: happy, sad, mad, glad, and afraid. It clears the chatter, because if you ask what you're feeling and then you're trying to analyze the feelings and try to figure out what you're feeling, it just makes it more complicated. But if you ask yourself the simple question, are you happy, sad, mad, glad, and afraid? It allows you to eliminate 4 out of the 5 to isolate 1. And it may be a combination sometimes of 2 different ones. You're sad and angry, right? But one will usually dominate the other. So when you even have to, when I say, okay, if you're down to sad and angry, are you more sad than you are mad, or are you more mad than you are sad? You answer your question, you go, actually, I'm just more sad. Then we go, okay, that is the primary emotion that you're feeling right now. That is the energy that's swirling in you right now. That is the energy you want to release. And you go through the exercise. Now, the commitment you need to make to yourself is that there is a solution to dealing with how you're feeling, the sadness, the anger, the frustration, the anxiety, whatever it is. Are you going to commit to taking the 2 minutes or 3 minutes or 4 minutes or whatever it is to actually go through this process and release that energy, giving you a different outcome? Or are you going to choose the same outcome by simply forgetting this lesson, trying to stuff the emotion again, and then go ahead and eat because that's what you're addicted to, that's what you're used to? Our goal here is for you to create a new solution, a new outcome for the behavior that you've been doing for sometimes years, if not decades. And I promise you, if you actually take the time to implement this exercise and ask yourself the question, identify the answer to the question of what you're feeling, and then give yourself grace to feel that feeling. There's nothing wrong with being mad. There's nothing wrong with being sad. There's nothing wrong with being angry. There's nothing wrong with being happy or glad. The point is that you currently have a story attached to how you feel. And that story is what's been running your life for a very long time. And now you want to give yourself some grace and say, you know what, I'm just feeling sad right now. It's no one else's fault. No one else caused this. This is mine. It's been in me way before hubby sparked the trigger, or your daughter sparked the trigger, or your friend or your social media post sparked the trigger. This is something that's already in you, and the catalyst from the outside is just giving you an opportunity to deal with it. Once you get so good at this, you'll actually be able to say thank you to the catalyst that made you stop and ask yourself this question. So you'll be able to say thank you to your spouse, or thank you to your child, or thank you to social media, or thank you to a friend or a family member that has triggered an emotion in you that's from some part in the past that you now have an opportunity to actually embrace and deal with. Breathe through it, identify the energy, breathe through it, shrink it down, and give it to God, instead of stuffing it in your body and stuffing it in your fat cells. If you're able to repeat this process and master this process, I promise you, you will no longer have an eating problem. You will no longer have an overeating problem or a binging problem, because you will be able to love yourself through and reparent your inner child to be able to process this energy in a way that is actually constructive instead of destructive. So give it a try. Do it right now. Close your eyes. Ask yourself, what are you feeling? Happy, sad, mad, glad, and afraid. Then go through the process and let me know how you feel on the other side. I'll see you in the next video. Take care.